Well, hello, and come along as we head back to the White House to visit with our 30th president, Calvin Coolidge. As the 30th president, he led the nation through most of the Roaring Twenties, a decade of dynamic social and cultural change, uh, materialism, and excess. He took office on August 3rd of 1923, following the sudden death of President Warren G. Harding, whose administration was riddled with scandal. Nicknamed Silent Cow for his quiet, steadfast, frugal nature, Coolidge, a former Republican governor of Massachusetts, cleaned up the rampant corruption of the Harding administration and provided a model of stability and respectability for the American people in the era of fast-paced modernism. He was a pro-business conservative who favored tax cuts and limited government spending. Yet some of his laissez-faire policies also contributed to the economic problems that erupted into the Great Depression. John Calvin Coolidge was born July 4th, 1872, in a small village of Plymouth Notch, Vermont. His father, also named John Calvin Coolidge, whose life spanned from 1845 to 1926, was a hard-working and frugal businessman who ran a general store and post office. His mother, Victoria Josephine Moore Coolidge, whose life spanned from 1846 to 1885, died when her son was just 12 years old. He was raised to be honest, industrious, and conservative, with a deep respect for business. Did you know Calvin Coolidge was the only U.S. president to be sworn in by his own father? In 1923, while visiting his childhood home in Vermont, Coolidge learned of President Warren Harding's death. It was in the middle of the night, Coolidge's father, a notary public, administered the oath by lamplight. I think I learned that. I forget where I learned that. I want to say it was in school. Anyway, Coolidge graduated from Black River Academy in Ludlow, Vermont in 1890 and went on to attend Amherst College in Massachusetts. Graduating with honors in 1895, he studied law and passed the Massachusetts bar exam in 1989, or 98, I'm sorry. After opening a law office in Northampton, he spent the next 20 years handling real estate deals, wills, and bankruptcy. And on October 4th, 1905, Coolidge married Grace Anna Goodhue, whose life spanned from 1879 to 1957. A teacher at a local school for the deaf. They had two sons, John, whose life spanned from 1906 to 2000, and Calvin Jr., whose life spanned from 1908 to 1924, who had died from blood poisoning as a teenager. Coolidge launched his career in politics in 1898 when he was elected to Northampton, Massachusetts City Council. He then began a quiet but methodical climb up the political ladder, serving in the Massachusetts House of Representatives as mayor of Northampton. As a state congressman, as a state senator, and as a lieutenant governor. During this period, Coolidge studied public policy questions, made speeches, and steadily gained influence in the Republican Party leaders. He developed a reputation as pro-business conservative who strove to make government lean and efficient. In 1918, Coolidge was elected governor of Massachusetts. He was catapulted into the national spotlight the following year when the Boston police force went on strike and riots broke out across the city. Coolidge sent in the state guard to restore order and then took a strong stand against rehiring the striking police officers. In a telegram to the labor leader Samuel Gumperz, whose life spanned from 1850 to 1924, he famously declared that there is no right to strike against the public safety by anybody, anywhere, anytime. Coolidge handling the situation captured the imagination of the American public. In the 1920 U.S. presidential election, or as the 1920 U.S. presidential election approached, rank and file delegates to the Republican National Convention chose him as the vice presidential candidate on a ticket headed by U.S. Senator Warren G. Harding of Ohio. The Harding-Coolidge ticket won the 1920 election in a landslide, and the men took office on March of 1921. Coolidge quickly grew frustrated with his largely ceremonial duties as vice president, but just 2 years later, Harding's sudden death on August 2nd of 1923 unexpectedly vaulted him to the Oval Office. Coolidge's no-nonsense approach to somber nature stood in stark contrast to his predecessor's gentle personality and casual leadership style. The differences served Coolidge well as he worked to clean up the corruption that had plagued the Harding administration. He appointed a special counsel to investigate the Teapot Dome oil lease scandal, in which the U.S. Secretary of Interior was accused, and later convicted, of accepting bribes to lease federal oil reserves without competitive bidding. And he dismissed Harding's tarnished U.S. Attorney General Harry M. Daughtry. Coolidge's reputation for honesty and integrity helped him restore public faith in the government. Coolidge ran for president in 1924 and won distinctively over the Democratic candidate, U.S. President or Representative John W. Davis, whose life spanned from 1873 to 1955, of West Virginia, and the Progressive Party candidate, U.S. Senator Robert M. La Follette, guided by his strong belief in private enterprise and small government. He cut taxes, limited government spending, and stacked regulatory commissions with people sympathetic to business. Coolidge once said, "The chief business of American people is business." He also rejected U.S. membership in the League of Nations and set high tariffs on imported goods to protect American industry. Coolidge remained popular throughout his presidency. The Roaring Twenties were the time of fast-paced social culture and technological changes, and many Americans lived boisterously and spent extravagantly. Some young women adopted the flapper lifestyle and drank alcohol, smoked, danced, and wore shorter skirts, makeup, and bobbed hair. Women also voted, and having won that right with the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution in 1920. Jazz music and Art Deco architecture flourished. Charles Lindbergh, whose life spanned from 1902 to 1974, made his pioneering solo airplane flight across the Atlantic Ocean in 1927. More people owned automobiles and purchased mass-produced goods such as canned foods. During this era of societal transformation, Coolidge served as a sort of father figure. The quiet, respectable, and frugal president provided a comforting symbol of an old-fashioned responsibility and virtue. Although many people believed Coolidge could have won re-election in 1928, he publicly announced his decision not to run on August 2nd of 1927. In a simple note delivered to reporters at a press conference, the physical strain of the job, as well as the death of his father and youngest son, had depleted his energy and interest in another term. The Republican Party turned to Herbert Hoover, who had served as Secretary of Commerce under both Harding and Coolidge, as its candidate. After departing the White House, Coolidge retired to Northampton, where he occupied himself by writing his memoirs and contributing political commentary to magazines. Less than a year after he left office, the U.S. stock market crashed, and the economy plummeted into the Great Depression. Although Coolidge had received a great deal of credit for prosperity of the 1920s, he recognized that he bore some responsibility for severe economic downturn. He admitted to friends that he had spent his presidency avoiding the big problems. As William Allen White quoted him as saying in his biography, "A Puritan in Babylon." Coolidge died of a heart attack at the age of 60 at his Northampton home on January 5th of 1933. And with that, I will see you all in the next one.